Welcome back to Comics Are Awesome, where we bring you everything awesome in comics. Normally I discuss comics I enjoy, but today I'm going to be talking with somebody who writes a comic I enjoy. I have Mr. Sterling Gates, a writer of Justice League of America's Vibe. Sterling, hi.
Hey, what's up, man?
Vibe is a very unusual character in that he's kind of pre-New 52 anyways. He was a bit of the butt of a lot of jokes. Was that when they asked you to write this book, was that like kind of being given a hot potato of like, oh, do I want to hold on to this or not? Or
I'll be the first to admit I was kind of skeptical of the potential of this book. Jeff Johns and Andrew Kreisberg launched this book, and when Jeff told me they were doing it, I said I don't really know why you would do that. And he said, well, we're gonna redefine who this character is, and update him for the 21st century. And I said, man, you kind of got some work cut out for you. And Jeff is known for redefining characters, and he's doing a killer job on Aquaman right now, and
yeah,
he's just coming off of 10 amazing years redefining Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern universe. I had faith in him, but I was a little like I said, I was skeptical of Vibe because I had that preconceived notion of who this character was from the 1984 Justice League Detroit book,
right.
which I read when I was a kid. And in that book, he wasn't my favorite character from that book. So Jeff sent me the script to issue one once he and Andrew had finished it, and I thought it was by far the best pilot issue of a comic book I'd read in a long, long time. It introduced the character. It gave him a lot of pathos, and he was very endearing to me. And the hook at the end of issue one, which is we're going to, make Vibe this sort of interdimensional border cop, hunting down things that bleed through into our dimension, and then the subsequent reveal that Amanda Waller is hiding Darkseid's daughter in the Omega Room. Like I was on board.
Yeah.
Like totally into it. Really excited to see what happened next. Little did I know, like a month later, I would get a phone call, and DC and Jeff asked me if I'd be interested in taking over the book and writing it, starting with issue 3. So like I said, I was skeptical. I became a fan of the work Jeff and Andrew did, and they did a fantastic job, I thought, with the first couple issues. And now that I'm pretty deep in the trenches with it, like I love this character, and I'm working hard in interviews such as this one to fight against that preconceived notion that Vibe is a joke character. Like, I don't know if you've read like his first appearances from back in the 80s recently, but like it opens with a double page spread of him breakdancing, like a breakdance fight.
Yes.
Uh,
That's my memory of the character, was he was the breakdancing Latino character.
and
Very
that
stereotypical, I think, in a lot of ways. And
of the early 80s. I mean,
yeah.
it's very much a product of his time.
Oh yeah.
And I think in that like sort of post Warriors gangland fighting sort of bad West Side Story kind of takeoff. I mean, like that character worked within that context of 1984 and what the world. But we've progressed a lot in
Yeah.
the last 30 years, and I think it was important to me to continue the work that Jeff and Andrew did in redefining this kid and who he is and what his relationship is with the other characters in the DCU.
So give the listeners a kind of a breakdown of what the basic premise of the book is.
Well, I'm a big believer in origin boxes, like
Uh huh.
on your title page of your comic book.
I'm a
So
fan.
so Vibe's origin box is as follows, and I have this hanging over my desk, so that's why I know this
Okay.
off the top of my head. Cisco Ramon was caught in the event horizon of a boom tube during Darkseid's first invasion of Earth. The exposure to the interdimensional forces rewrote his DNA, and now Cisco uses his vibrational powers to help Argus find and restrain dangerous fugitives from other realities. The second youngest member of the Justice League, he is Vibe. And that's sort of I mean, that's in every issue. Like, so
Hmm.
hopefully anyone that picks up an issue, like, can pick up on that right from this top and and go with this. But he's a kid from Detroit. He in the same accident that gave him powers, one of his brothers was killed, vaporized, and so he has he uses his powers to try and track down these what we call breachers, interdimensional creatures and fugitives that bleed through into our reality. And Argus, because of his power set, Argus hires him to find these monsters. What we're seeing, starting with issue 4, which is out this week, is that some of those monsters might not be the monsters that Argus thinks that they are, and they might not be the dangerous people that Argus thinks they are.
Right. Well, I was going to say that one of the things I really enjoy about this book is the fact that Cisco is very a likable character and very like kind of an ordinary guy type character, and I enjoy that. But what I really love, because I mean we've seen those type of characters before, since Peter Parker, but I don't think I've seen a character who right off the bat is in so far over his head, and he doesn't even realize it quite how far deep he is. I like that dynamic of this very likable, normal guy who is so deep in over his head because of he's being inducted into the Justice League of America. He's being told to fight these monsters, and some of them, as you say, are not as bad as what he's being told, and he's been being manipulated by Waller, by his handler, Dale Gunn. It's a different setup than I think I've seen in a lot of, even though it's very familiar in a lot of ways too.
Well, it's a fairly, I mean, it's a standard storytelling kind of trope. What I like about it is Vibe isn't dumb. Like he like gets caught up to speed pretty quick, because in the span of 2 issues, he's had 2 different superpowered people tell him, "Hey, you should look out for Argus. They're not all that they seem." And he starts seeing the cracks right away. Like
The
there's a temptation there to, well, as long as we keep him employed by Argus, and we can tell stories indefinitely like this, where they just continually send him on missions. But I also think it's important, like he should be smart enough to figure it out. He's an intelligent kid. Yeah, he's in over his head, but he has a very very dangerous set of powers.
right.
And it's a set of powers that can do a lot more harm if he wants them to.
Hmm.
Uh,
Well, Waller says that in theory, he could probably tear the Earth apart, and
sure, he could tear a hole in space and possibly open holes to other dimensions. And we're exploring his powers along with him, with Cisco. We're exploring his powers as readers, from issue to issue, as he is discovering sort of the capabilities and the limitations himself.
yeah.
I wanted to have sort of a training montage thing, and I couldn't find a good place to do it. Um, so the only other way to explore those powers are on the field, in the field of battle. And so as Vibe goes issue to issue, and in theory mission to mission, he's going to be doing a lot more interesting and exciting things with his powers, and possibly even losing control of them at some point.
So one of the I love Cisco, and one of the things I really love about him is also he's got a brother. He, like you said, he lost one brother when Darkseid's forces infiltrated the Earth, but he also has a brother Dante, and you don't see a lot of two brother relationships in comics too often. You've got your Cyclops and Havoc, but those are tend to be exceptions, and I kind of like it because Dante could have been, because he's he's the brother the screw up brother, I guess if you really wanted to label it, but I wouldn't say that because he's a good guy, but he's also the one who's before Vibe, is inducted into Argus, is the one asking, Cisco for, to use to double his money at a casino or something like that. But at the same, so it's an interesting dynamic where they're both looking out for each other. Is the one of the more unique facets of that character. I really, I think I don't see in a lot of comics.
And I thought that was a master stroke of Jeff and Andrew's script in issue one to introduce this sort of non-powered sidekick in a lot of ways
Mm-hmm.
for Vibe, so that he has someone who he can react with and respond to. Like we get into some pretty heavy interdimensional stuff coming up, and one of the things I like is that Vibe can call his brother and go, "Oh my God, you will not understand what I'm looking at." And it helps Vibe process what's going on with him, even as really big stuff is happening in the story. And I thought that relationship was very cool and um, very unlike anything else I was reading that I'm reading in comics now. Uh, so it was important for me to keep that and keep it gives us the ability to ground the book whenever we need it, because you always run the risk when doing big crazy stuff like this, like if it gets too far from a human reaction, from an emotional human reaction, like you can lose the story. And so and I think Dante, who was a very irresponsible brother, as things, I don't know if you've seen the cover to six or read the solicitor or whatever, but like obviously things don't go so well for Cisco once he starts trying to stand up to this organization,
Mm-hmm.
and and Dante will play a bigger role in the story as we go along, and it might not go so well for him.
Speaking of the supporting cast, one of the other major characters is Agent Dale Gunn, who is Argus's kind of watchkeeper over Cisco. And spoilers for the most recent issue, but Dale Gunn I didn't have a really good vibe on him. No pun intended. He was a he was
Not
a
one.
yeah, I know. He was a character who he I couldn't tell where his loyalties lie. If he seems to be looking out for Cisco in some ways, but at the same time, he's following orders. Whenever Waller says turn the screws, he's the one doing it. And in the most recent issue, you get a very touching scene of Gunn's home life where you meet his husband,
Yeah.
and it was something, and it's not just and the way it was handled, I thought it was very nice. It wasn't something very splashy done for publicity or anything like that. It was a character showing his his human side. It was also a character worrying about somebody who he loved, and I thought that was one of the was that something that Jeff had written as ahead of time, or was that just something that you added?
Um, Early on, I had a conversation with Jeff, and he said, like, I really want to see a scene of Gunn in his home life. Like, I don't know what it's like. I don't know if he has kids. I don't know if he's married. I don't know if he's gay. I don't know if he's straight. I don't know anything about him. Like, let's do that. And so, issue four, and that was before I started writing issue four. And so, for me, it was just like, oh, maybe he is gay. Maybe he's married.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that. Like what an interesting character. It adds a whole other layer to him that I hadn't really thought about. And it's a different type of it's a different relationship for me to write. I've written a lot of heteronormative relationships in my time, so it was an opportunity um, to write something that is both similar and different from anything that I've worked on before.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like I said, I hats off to you. It was really well executed.
Thanks, man. It was, and Casey's back in issue six. Is the next time he shows up, so he'll be around. He's like the supporting character for the supporting character, so he's not going to play a huge role
Mm-hmm.
in a. But I thought it was important for Gunn to have someone to talk to about his problems with Waller. Um, and that is, I don't know if you've ever been in a long term relationship or married or lived with anyone, but like when you come home from the office, like you want to unwind and tell the person you love what's going on because it's bothering you, and they will offer their perspective, and that was important to me for that scene to just here's a relationship and just play it fairly normal, but it's Gunn unloading, no pun intended,
Wah
uh,
wah.
Gunn unloading the problems of his day with his loved one, and I don't know. I just thought it was a good scene to write, and an interesting facet to an already complicated character.
Very cool. And also in this most recent issue, we see a lot more of Gypsy. That's another character from the Detroit era of Justice League. Um, and this time she's kind of got a different origin going on. She is no longer just a teen runaway, but she is in fact part of a nomadic interdimensional tribe, I guess. Is
Yep,
that correct? Okay. Um,
that's what she says.
yes, I have to admit, I have a soft spot for Gypsy because one of the very first comics I ever bought was a Justice League comic that number 250 back in the day, which featured her pretty prominently, and so I was really excited to see that, and I kind of like this new take on her. It's as it still fits the kind of the archetype, but it's definitely something new and different. Can you say too much more about what your plans with Gypsy are? Is she going to be an ongoing character, or is it something where she may disappear for a while?
Wow, how I don't know how much I can. She's on the cover to Seven,
Okay,
so
that's yeah.
uh,
I don't want to. I don't want to spoil anything too far down the
yeah,
road.
she is a part of the first two arcs that I'm doing.
Okay.
Her role will change from story to story, but yeah, I mean, like as you saw at the end of issue 4, again, spoilers for people that haven't read it yet, like Vibe makes the decision to break protocol and go AWOL because he wants to get her home, and and getting her home is not as easy a process as we think it is, as you might think.
Hmm.
So she's a big part of the story coming up. Um, yeah, that's she's a big part of Vibe's story.
Okay. Um, can we expect any future appearances from perhaps some other Detroit era heroes like Steel or Vixen?
As of right now, not really.
Okay.
I hate to ruin that for you, but I like as of today, whatever the date is, the 15th or whatever of May. Like there are no plans to use those characters in this book currently. Um, as as I know from writing superhero books for 7 years, like those plans could change tomorrow.
Right.
But right now, I think Vibe and Gypsy and Gunn are your only Justice League Detroit guys. Interestingly, someone asked me on Twitter about Simon Baz, who's the Green Lantern in Justice League of America, who's also from Detroit. Um, will he be showing up? And I don't have a good answer that I could share with people
Hmm.
um, for that one.
Um, well, can we expect perhaps some other appearances from other members of the Justice League of America? Because that's a big part of his character arc, of Cisco's character arc, is that he's been, kind of put in on this new team, of this government-controlled version of the Justice League. So, are we going to see, Stargirl or Hawkman or whoever show up from the team from time to time?
Keep reading.
Of course. Um,
Incidentally, like I love all those guys. Like I really would like to do something with Stargirl at some point. She's one of my favorite characters. And Hawkman. I don't know if you read Justice League of America 1, but
Yeah, I have to admit that I know that you didn't write that, but I have to give props to Jeff for that scene where he just
such
drops the mace and he's like, and Cisco's like, "Are you bleeding? It's not my blood."
and then
Scoot, scoot, scoot.
Cisco looks at the camera. I thought that was the best thing in that scene is there's a silent panel where Cisco looks at the camera
Yes.
and scoots his chair away. Like I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I have to admit, I actually am enjoying Justice League of America more than Justice League itself, just because I love these type of characters. I love seeing these guys who maybe aren't given the chance to shine as much as the big guns, and so getting to see those characters kind of bounce off each other is really interesting. And I like to see solo books like Vibe, where you get a chance to explore, some of these characters who maybe normally would just kind of be regulated to being forgotten.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a really interesting decision on DC's part to run a Vibe and Katana, like run those two books concurrently with Justice League of America. Um, I'm happy they did it. Like I think, I'm really enjoying exploring Vibe's world and his motivations and what he does. Like I think he's a very positive teen character in a very dark world.
Good
And
way of putting it.
one of the things that drew me to him, I think, in those first couple issues was his optimism in a very cynical time period, in a very cynical world. Um, the Suicide Squad guest star in issue 5, and the contrast between their methods and Vibe's methods it was very interesting to write, because they are willing to take the kill shot and Vibe is not. Um, and so to pit them against each other, where you've got this kid who has amazing powers but is responsible enough to not use them in such a negative way, I think it was really interesting to write. There's a moment in issue 6 where it's the first time Vibe makes a decision for himself using his powers. And I got notes back from my editors saying, "Is this too far for him?" And I said, "Well, given the events around this issue, I don't think so. But let's explore that if it is too far. Like what happens the first time Peter Parker goes too far with his powers? Like that was fun to explore then. So let's look into this kid and see what this decision does to him, even as he goes through a whole range of emotions." Um, Not to spoil that, he goes through a whole range of emotions because of the events of issue 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we get. I think we're going to get pretty deep into this kid's head across the next 5 issues, and I hope people check out this book. It's a fun book to write, and I know the word "fun" in American comics can be misconstrued to mean light.
Yeah, light or silly, but no, it's definitely a great book. I urge everyone to go check it out. Sterling, do you have any other projects up ahead that you can promote or talk about?
That have been announced.
Yeah.
uh, I wrote a web series. It's being shot right now in Oklahoma. It's kind of cool. Teenage superhero web series, kind of along the lines of Vibe. It's called the Posthuman Project. I think they have a website, posthumanmovie.com. And they're shooting that as we speak, literally as we speak. They're shooting today. And it's a 13 episode web series about teen superheroes. That should it's probably right up your alley, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I will definitely have to check that out.
But other than that, like nothing that I can actually talk about on record.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean there are fires and there are irons in those fires.
Excellent. Well, if people want to follow you, they can find you on Twitter at Sterling Gates.
Yeah, all one word, like at Sterling Gates.
Okay.
I have a website. It's not up right now for a number of reasons, but sterlinggates.com will exist sooner rather than later.
Okay. So if you want to find out more news about his web series, probably follow him on Twitter or go visit his website when that comes out. And
Facebook page too. They're facebook.com/posthumanfilm, all one word. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, Sterling, thank you for coming on and talking about Vibe. I wish you luck in the future.
Thanks a lot, man. I'm really glad you like the book, and like I said, I hope people give it a shot. I know Vibe as a character was a hard sell for me, but the strength of Jeff's first issue definitely changed my mind, and I think, hopefully if people check it out, like we can change how people feel about Vibe.
Yes, yes. So go check it out, and remember, comics are awesome, and we're gonna get the word out.